Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to another installment of Starter Set Saturdays. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Pendragon role-playing game. So this starter set and the Pendragon RPG in general are put out by Chaosium, and this has a retail price, or suggested retail price, of $29.99 US. Now Chaosium, they are known for using sort of these thinner, longer, or taller boxes for their starter sets, but I think we'll take a look here and we'll see that they pack a ton into this, half-sized starter set box. We're going to start with our presentation and production quality category here, because that's where we always start. But the production quality and the presentation are absolutely top-notch with this product. It is really meant to be evocative of like that medieval European kind of art style and history and the things you would see in books from that era, like the engravings that would be in them. The style of illustrations is very reminiscent of that era. They do an amazing job with it here. We can even see just from the box itself for the starter set, you do have like the knights here fending off another army, and you do have sort of the like the floral patterns there on the top and bottom, and of course the Pendragon logo here inside of the banner. Really cool looking stuff here. On the back of the box, you do get to see again the contents here, along with sort of an image of the map. We'll talk a little bit about the map more in a second. But yeah, this is a really cool concept, and I was really interested in this when I heard that they were putting out a new version of the game coming out with the starter set, and I wanted to get it as soon as I could, and it was really hard to find places that had it in stock. Either they had sold out, or they were just having, I don't know if they were having trouble getting it in. I'm not entirely sure, but I was finally able to get my hands on a copy of this. I would have ordered it directly from Chaosium's site, but the shipping costs end up kind of being really rough when you're shipping to Nova Scotia, Canada. But anyway, on with the presentation here. So the production quality of the box, it is a nice sturdy cardboard. I don't think there's going to be any issues with that falling apart. And of course, we really got to talk about the artwork here. As I said, the art, like there's some really cool art on the covers and things like that, but the real good stuff is when you get inside of the books themselves and you kind of see some of the art style that they have here for just like little bits of art kind of interspersed throughout. It's just, like I said, it's very evocative of that time, the medieval European kind of art style there. So there's some really great artwork in here, and includes, if I can find it, one of the greatest depictions of a horse ever, and that's that guy right there. So yeah, really great presentation, really decent artwork all throughout. But again, just it's that small little like pieces of art that are kind of interspersed throughout that just really capture that sort of like, again, that like Arthurian, medieval European style. So really fantastic job there for the presentation and production. And, I say that I don't give a lot of these out, but we've been coming into quite a few really good examples of this lately. The presentation is going to be getting a 9 out of 10. The next thing we're going to be taking a look at here, we'll look at the contents of the box, and then we will get into the rules booklet and my thoughts on that. So for starters, we do have a D20 and some D6s here. So this is a skill-based D20 system, but it's a roll under. So your character will have skills, they'll have like weapon skills, they will have personality traits that will have like sort of like diametrically opposed views that you have to sort of balance and, try to act within, your moral compass and your guidelines, but that can change as time goes on. And it's just, it's really cool to have like these roll under systems, especially for me, because I tend to roll pretty bad a lot of the time. But it also has a really cool way of determining criticals, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. But those are nice when it comes to like damages and things of that nature. You use the D6s. So you use the D20 for your skill resolution, and the D6s for anything else that you might need. So yeah, we got the the what's in the box sheet here. And again, just a really cool ad for the fantasy adventure. We have more so some of the different games that they have. Like, I guess this is more of an ad for RuneQuest, which I've never actually picked that up either. I know they have a starter set as well, so I might be feeding my addiction here. There are 3 booklets included. The first is a solo adventure, which sort of like a choose your own adventure style here, which does actually include, and this is relevant to the rules section, it does actually include a bit of like a rudimentary basic character creation system. So you're playing these individuals that are squires or about to sort of like reach, or I think they're just about to become squires, or they're just about to reach the early stages of knighthood. And again, you can see like their skills here. You can see the different traits that they have. And like so, there's always there's 2 sides of each coin, right? So if there's chaste and there's lustful. So you look at like whatever number you might have for your chaste. So like that's one that is considered to be like a religiously significant value because it's in bold here for the purposes of this character sheet. So, you might want to have, you might have a decent number in that for you to roll under. However, there is always going to be the other side of that coin, and that's, always going to be there. So the way that traits work, so your skills are just like numbers 1 through, I don't think they ever reach as low as 1. But I think 15 or 16 is kind of where they typically cap out. And then you've got the traits here, which usually don't go above 15, although you do get to choose one trait that is your the one that you're renowned for. So you might be, for example, you may be Eric the Merciful, for example. So your Merciful can start off at a 16, whereas the other ones cannot go above a 15. But the other side of that coin is still there, so whatever is left over after you do your points here, to equal up to 20 will go on this side. So they all start at base 10, and then your traits, like the ones that you value, will go up while the other side of the coin will go down. So if your chaste is 15, your lustful nature would still be a 5. So that might be a situation where you may have to roll for that. So we got, again, the traits there. And there's some other aspects of the character as well. You've got an honor trait. You've got glory. So honor is something that can fluctuate over time. It's sort of adhering to, a moral and just code, and, the more valorous things you do, the higher your honor can be. But if you start, maybe doing some questionable things, the honor goes down. But then you also have glory, and glory is kind of just how well known you are, and glory never goes down. So you can be known for being just and fair and merciful and someone of the paragons of virtue. But you can also be known for being somewhat, for being cruel, or again, being lustful, or, being greedy. So you can always alter your honor up and down depending on your actions, but you're always going to be increasing that glory there, because your actions, for good or for bad, will build you a reputation. So we got the rule booklet here, which we'll get another look at. We've got our campaign book, and then we have a number of appendices. So there's Appendix A for tournaments, Appendix B for battle, and that's actually staple bound because it's got several pages in there as well. We've got an appendix for overland movement. We've got appendix for visiting a foreign court, because as a knight, you are considered a part of the nobility. So you're kind of at the bottom end of the nobility, but you are still part of that. So that's really cool. You've also got looks like some cards here, some stat cards as well that you can use for throughout the adventure. And then you've got your pre-generated characters, and there should be 8 of the characters provided here. So again, we're not going to go through, well, we'll take a look at each of them here, just at least for the artwork. They do have sort of a unique way of presenting the character here. So we got the artwork on one side, and then we've got their coat of arms or crest, coat of arms I think it is, or their heraldry. You've got some notes, spots for taking notes down. There's your glory total that you can keep track of as the campaign goes on. And then on the inside, you've got this, you've got the actual character sheet. So you've got basically your stats and anything sort of derived from them, your combat weapon stats, their attack values that you're checking against, as well as the damage that they do. You've got your hit points and wounds, you've got your skills, you've got your horse information, equipment, your traits, your passions, which again are something that you can roll off of as well, depending on what the situation may call for. And you even have information if you pick up a squire. So that's sort of the presentation of each of the characters there. So again, we're not going to go through and show all of the numbers and stuff, but we can at least take a look at their coat of arms and the artwork for them there. And there are 8 characters, so again, there's plenty to choose from. And while this is based off of medieval Europe, it's not meant to be like a gritty, historically accurate version. This is more like a kind of a fantasy version of, it's like the Arthurian legends, right? Like it's kind of this idealized version of what, history might have been. It's not meant to be like an accurate recreation here. So, for example, one of the big things is that they include, you can be female knights, and there's absolutely no distinction between being a female or male knight except for the distinction between being called like a lord or a dame sort of thing. Or sir and a dame. So there we go. Those are the contents of the starter set. So I'm just going to be putting a lot of this stuff back into the box. And again, the really cool little artwork there. I love that little clip art that's thrown in throughout. All right, so let's take a look at we'll take a look at the rules booklet here. So I'm just going to move the solo adventure. Like I said, it does have a character creation system, but it is sort of a choose your own type of scenario. I actually do want to go through this someday and actually do it on the channel. I did that for the Call of Cthulhu starter set when I did the video on that, so it'd be nice to do that. But here we got, again, our rule book here, and the rules are pretty well laid out and explained. I don't really have any particular issues with the way that the rules are presented, and it's pretty much the exact same information that you would find in the core rulebook. It's just certain sections are a little bit more expanded out. Like, for example, the horse section is a lot more detailed in the core book, or the hardcover core rulebook, and then you've also got an entire system for creating your own coat of arms for your heraldry for your knights. Like, that's a big part of the core rulebook as well. But again, it goes into a decent amount of detail. I don't think there's anything that's going to be overly open-ended or something, like nothing that's not explained really, really well. And again, I love the idea of the way that they handle their rules, because it is a roll under system, but things are a little bit different when it comes to determining a critical success. So in every RPG that I've owned up to this point, if you use a D20 and there's a critical success or critical failure options, the way it always works is, it's the extreme ends of the die. So, for example, in a roll-over system, a natural 1 is typically a critical failure, and a natural 20 is typically a critical success. For a roll-under system, it tends to be the opposite. So a natural 1 would be considered a critical success, and a natural 20 would be considered a critical failure. However, with this one, a critical failure is still, if you roll a natural 20 on the die, can still be really bad. However, for a critical success, it's not based on rolling the lowest number. It's based on rolling the number that matches the trait that you're using. So if you're using a weapon attack, and for example, you have a weapon or your skill rating of 15 for that weapon, and you attack an individual, if you roll a 15 on the die, that is considered to be a critical success instead of it just being a natural 1. So it does mean that you can technically get more potential for criticals with the different skill ratings and different numbers, rather than always needing to rely on just rolling the lowest number or the highest number. So I do kind of like the way that is done there. And again, there's different things to discuss when it comes to their skills. There's your personality traits. There's your passions, um, which all mechanically work or similarly, but they're sort of used in different ways throughout the game. You may have to make a glory roll, so you have to sort of, you divide your glory by a certain number. I think it's 30 or something like that, and that determines what you get, because those numbers can get pretty high over time. Another interesting thing about the Pendragon role playing game is that each adventure or scenario is considered to take a year's worth of in-game time. So it doesn't really spend a lot of time going over simple like travel, or things like that. It's sort of more likes to focus on like the high points of what you're doing throughout that year. But there's not really any like traveling or questing or anything like that would go on during the winter period. So there's always, at the end of each scenario, you do get your winter phase, and that's usually a place where you can recover from injuries, because getting injured in this game can be really, really bad. You can also use that to increase your skills, so you can sort of like check to see if you can improve or modify your skills. And I believe it's also during the winter phase that your glory gets added up or gets modified, I believe, as well. I know that it takes time for the glory and honor to be applied to the character. It's not like an immediate thing necessarily. But yeah, again, just a really cool. The rule booklet here, like I said, I think it's pretty well laid out. I think it does the explanations very well. Again, it's not a complicated system to try to learn, so you do get lots and lots of useful information here. I mean, it is a 60 plus page rule book there, so as far as the rules go, I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10. So you also can see on the back of the books here, I should also mention that you do get portions of the map of England and some of the different locations there. Unfortunately, you don't get a complete map in the starter set, and I'll sort of talk about that in a moment here as well. But for example, like this would line up kind of like that. And then this one, don't know exactly where this one goes, but they just kind of line up with one another. I think it actually kind of goes like that. So they can sort of be used to make a map, but there are very few situations where I think all three books aren't going to be in use. But let's take a look now at the adventure quality. So the adventure is called the Sword Campaign. So this has the knight starting at a tournament when suddenly Arthur pulls the sword from the stone or the anvil. It's not Excalibur that he pulls, but he pulls a different sword. And later on, when he receives Excalibur, when he gets Excalibur, he uses the sword that he pulls here, which I think was called the Sword of Justice? No, sorry, the Sword of Peace. Clarent, the Sword of Peace. He'll use that for like rituals and knighting and stuff like that. During the tournament, after he pulls the sword, it creates a bit of a kerfuffle. It leads to some individuals attacking in an attempt to steal the sword. And this is where one of the things that comes in where I don't know how I feel about it as sort of a aspect of the game, but as knights, you are sort of like beholden to like following orders from your lords and adhering to like your personal code of honor and stuff like that. And when there's a situation where somebody, an enemy grabs the sword and tries to run off with it, and the book basically tries to force one of the player characters into running after that individual, which they likely would anyway, but it sort of like creates a system of punishment if they decide not to, where they can actually lose honor as a result, and then another knight accomplishes what they could have. So it's a little bit on the railroady side for certain things, but there's some cool stuff in here. There are some like really cool battles that take place, and there's even a little bit of mysticism thrown in there as well, with individual, bearing a form of a curse that I'm not going to go too much into, but a player character could also end up falling victim to that. to that same curse as well throughout the sort of the later end of the campaign. So there's definitely, like I said, it's not meant to be like historically accurate because magic and stuff like that isn't real, but it is still cool to see it incorporated into the game. Is almost more of like a mythical type of aspect of the system, but you do get 3 different scenarios in here, so you're getting quite a bit of gameplay out of the scenario. So you start with the tournament, then you have the adventures of the adventure of the forest of the silver deer, and then you have the final section. It was actually quite short, the third chapter, but you do get 2 pretty good sized scenarios here, and again, you're going to get a decent amount of gameplay out of those. I think you can probably get, at least with starter sets, usually a lot of them are geared for like 1 session, maybe 2, but I think in this one you could probably get 3, maybe even 4 sessions out of the game, depending on how long you play for. I would think that you could go through everything here in about 3 to 4 hour game sessions, but it might take a little bit more, it might take a little bit less, depending on how much the group wants to get into the role-playing side of things. But there is a pretty decent variety, and again, each of these scenarios is considered to be a different year. So, for example, the year of the sword tournament, we can find it here. So that takes place in year 510. So that's the first scenario, and then the final scenario, the third scenario, takes place in the year 512, with the middle one taking place in the year of 511. So you do get, sort of the tale is told over a series of years, which is kind of a neat narrative aspect there, and you get to play like the most important moments throughout that year. Interestingly, the adventures are also, or the scenarios are also presented a lot with a lot of like just quoted text from like different NPCs and how they interact with like dialogue that takes place. So when you're reading through the scenarios, like you do get the encounters and stuff like that, but it's also kind of almost like reading like a story, like a fable type of thing. So it's kind of neat to kind of go through that and see the way that that's laid out. So overall, you do get some decent gameplay sessions out of it. There are some cool concepts in there, like, so there's some really, epic feeling, fights and battles, and there's also a little bit of mysticism thrown in there. You do get to interact with, the boy King Arthur and Merlin, so there's some really cool stuff in there. I will say, though, especially early on, it does feel like sometimes the players are kind of like being led down the trail maybe a little bit too heavy-handedly, but overall, still a really solid scenario, so I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10. So again, 7 out of 10 is, really well done, above and beyond. 8s and 9s would be like exceptional. So 7 out of 10 is a strong rating, the way that I present my out of 10 rating system. And then we're going to come to the value for our price. So at $30 US, I think it's pretty safe to say that you get a ton of value out of this thin little box. I mean, it is absolutely packed full. Let's just try to we'll bring these sort of things back out here. So, I mean, you do get a nice set of dice here to use. You do get these appendices, some of which are multiple pages. You get tons of pre-generated characters. You get an awful lot of stuff here. So I would say just overall, like the value for your dollar for all the inclusions, and I feel like, I don't know for sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with the appendices being included the way that they are as separate pieces, I feel like those might have been stretch goals if it was crowdfunded. I don't know if it was, but you still get a ton of stuff here. Like each of these appendix options here go into greater detail about, different aspects of the game. So like the running battles, running tournaments and like the grand melee. So you can get a lot of like just extra gameplay out of your campaigns just by, incorporating the information included in here even more thoroughly into your game. So really, really great stuff. For the value for your dollar, I have to give this a 9 out of 10. So overall, We had presentation and production at 9 as well. Rules quality at 8, adventure quality at 7, value for price also being a 9. So this gets an 8.25 out of 10, which is a pretty strong rating. The pros and cons. We'll start with the cons first because I always prefer to end on a more positive note. So on the negative sides, again, like I said, the knight characters sometimes feel like the adventure forces them into specific actions. I mean, they're usually things that they would likely do anyway, but I don't really like the idea of writing in a punishment if the characters don't, like, for example, they may be engaged with other enemies. So if somebody's running off with a sword, then one of them, like the adventurer, kind of wants them to disengage and run after that person, but they may not feel that it's a good idea to disengage from their opponent. So to write in a punishment, I'm not the biggest fan of that. It would have been nice to have had a blank character sheets included in here as well. There is, like I said, there is kind of a character creation, like a quick start way of creating characters in book 1, but it would have been nice to have had some blank sheets to be able to do that with. It also would have been nice to have had a fold out map of England to use. Like, it's nice that they're included in portions on the backs of some of these books. But again, it would have been nice to just have like a single map that you could just lay out on the table, because I don't think this is really something that would call for like miniatures or things like that. So it might just be nice to have a map that you could lay out with like a little token represent where you are and where enemies are and what you're doing. Type of thing. So I think that is a bit of a missed opportunity. The other thing that I would say is that the appendices are really great. They're a fantastic inclusion, and they definitely add a lot to the game, which is one of my pros. So I guess I kind of gave that away. But it would have been nice if they could have actually just been incorporated into the rule booklet. I don't know exactly why they were done as separate. Again, I leaning towards it being crowdfunded initially, and the appendix being like stretch goals to be included in there, and in that case it kind of makes sense that they would be separate, because everything else would have already likely had been sent to to be produced. So if that's the case, like, I totally understand that. But if we do ever get like a second print run of this starter set, like, it might be nice to actually just have them included in the rule book itself. And the last thing is that this is a very niche concept of playing like Arthurian knights in like medieval England, and it's not something that's going to be for everybody. There are folks that just like the dungeon crawling hack and slash sword and sorcery type of game, and you're not going to find that here. So it is going to have a bit more of a limited appeal as far as like the overall like style of game is. Now for the pros, the inclusion of the solo single player choose your own adventure thing is absolutely fantastic. It's a great way to learn the mechanics of the game as well as to get invested in the world. So I think that's an absolutely amazing inclusion here. The campaign book having 3 separate scenarios, even if one is kind of on the short side, is still really cool to see, because a lot of starter sets will just have a singular scenario and that'll be it. So there's a little bit more variety as far as that's concerned. And again, the rules appendix being included there do have a great way of expanding the game, which is great. The artwork is absolutely incredible in this, particularly just the little clip art or little small piece of art that's inserted just in sort of like blank spaces on the pages there. And going back to that horse picture from the rule booklet, just, absolutely incredible. And I do like the new approach to critical successes for a roll under system. Instead of it being a natural one, having to roll your precise skill rating, I like that approach. It just means that more numbers can potentially on the die have the potential to be crits. Like, it's always going to be 1 out of 20. Like, it doesn't change the overall odds, but it's nice to be able to crit on a roll of a 14 or a 12. Or if you're rolling against a really low skill and you have like a rating of 5 and you get that 5 on the d20, for that to be a critical success is really, really cool. So I really like a lot of those aspects of it there. And it is a very, very quick and easy to learn system there, because the mechanics are all essentially the same. So it's very quick to pick up and learn. It's very easy to teach. Like roller systems are great for that. There's not a lot of math involved, which can bog things down at times. So a really great, quick and easy to learn system. Some great production value, some amazing inclusions. You know, this half size box set is just absolutely packed full. And when you pick up this starter set versus some of the other ones in boxes that are twice as thick, and this thing weighs like 3 times as much as the other ones, you know you're getting you're getting your money's worth and then some when it comes to these. So there we go. That is my look at the Pendragon starter set for the Starter Set Saturday series. 8.25 out of 10. Let me know in the comments below. Have you picked up the Pendragon role-playing game? Have you run through the starter set? Did you pick up the full rules? I have everything that's been put out for this newest version so far. I don't know how much more I'm going to get for it, but I do have the core rules. I do have the Grey Knight campaign book, and I do have the Game Master's guidebook as well. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on the Pendragon role-playing game. So thank you all so very much. This was the winner of the last poll that I put up for this series. I think about a day ago at the time that I'm recording this. A couple of days ago by the time this goes up live. I have put up the new poll for the next Starter Set Saturday, which is probably going to be in about 3 weeks' time. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be going, the wife and I are going to be going on vacation, so we're going to be out of the province. So I'll try to get some stuff out for them, but I don't think I'll have a Starter Set Saturday up for that. But the weekend after I get back, hopefully we'll have that now. So voting for that is also going to be up. Be sure to check that on I think it's the community tab on the channel. And I look forward to seeing what we do next. Anyway, thank you all so much for your time. Again, I truly appreciate it. We will see you in the next one. Until then, take care.